All right, good evening, everyone. Uh, Wanted to post a quick video demonstrating some basic functions in Excel. We'll be using SPSS for the most part in terms of our formal data analyses, but we'll use Excel for a number of different things just because it's useful and helpful. Want to go through, most of you are probably familiar with basic functions in Excel, but if you're not, just want to take you through a couple features that I find useful as I'm doing data analysis. So the handout that I'm going to be working with here is this Excel demo PDF. You'll find that in the handout section on the course website, and then also under the data files you'll see this Excel sheet. What do we call it? The Excel demo that we'll be just kind of playing around with here in this demonstration. And so in terms of basic setup in your Excel sheet, you've got worksheets. Worksheets, oops, get this figured out, are these sheets down here in the bottom tab. And what you can do with these is set up different spreadsheets, so on and so forth. What we can do is we can name these spreadsheets. So if we just wanted to name this demo, this one example 2, whoops, all right there, example 2, right? Just to help keep track of what you're doing with this. These are separate sheets, but we can link them together with different types of tools, but we'll talk about just how we do that in a moment. So basic worksheets there. Second thing, in terms of formatting, this ends up being nice in terms of how you go through, set up your cells, doing different things. So if you go through and highlight some cells and then right click and then drop down and hit format cells. Number of different options here. In the number, you can go through and start changing different cells to indicate different values. General, this is just kind of whatever you write in is what the cell is. This is places things in a number format, so we could go through, add two decimal places, 1 decimal places. You can play around, turn things into currency. Dates, this is helpful for if you have dates, calculating duration between 2 assessment periods, times, percentage, things along those lines. Okay, so we'll keep these for our purposes here, keep these values as numbers to 1 decimal place. Alignment, playing around with different ways in which how the text is oriented, things. Font, you can change things up here. Again, a lot of this is available in the upper ribbon, but you can do it through here. Border, I like to do this when I'm setting up tables. For example, if we want to, here, let's say I want to calculate a border here. I hit format cells, go to border. We can put some boundaries on the top and bottom here. And we'll see it gives me borders along that. I can also set up a fill, which again, this is something that you can do through other ribbons, but your fill, say I want those values to be highlighted. So they're highlighted with a border. And then the last thing we can do here is to protect. At some point we'll be building calculators and things, may want to use that protection so that once you've got a formula set in, a value, that it's not getting changed around. So some basic formatting things that we can do here. We'll go through and say no border, get rid of that, and say no color on the fill and change everything back. Okay, so these are just some things you can do in Excel in terms of formatting. One of the real powerful things that I end up using Excel a lot for is calculating basic stuff that I don't want to have to fool around with in Excel, and sometimes it's actually a lot easier. So if I wanted to say calculate the sum of cells B and C right here. What I can do is I can hit equals cell B plus cell C, and it gives me the sum there. Okay, I can also say if I want to get the sum of a string of variables, so I can go through and calculate all of these, and up here in the window this will give me the sum of, that's weird formatting or weird text here, this gives me the sum of all the values in column B. Okay, or if I wanted to take the average of column B, same thing, put that in, drag it down, and now I've got the average of column B here. Okay, lots of different built-in mathematical functions. We can take the square root, we can take things to power, calculate standard deviation. Let's say I want to calculate standard deviation, and if you go and start typing things, you can see I want the standard deviation from the sample. Double click this, highlight if this were a true group of variables. Okay, standard deviation of this set of variables is going to be 16.1. Okay, so lots of different things. If there's some sort of mathematical calculation or statistical calculation, Excel will probably do it, sometimes not as efficiently, or sometimes it can be a pain relative to SPSS, but some different things we can do there. And then these formulas are going to be something that we'll use a lot in terms of developing some statistical calculators down the road. Dragging is also a nice feature. What we can do if you want to copy cells across a number of, or copy a value across a number of cells, this is easy to do. All you need to do is click on the value, and you see this little square down the bottom. Drag that, haul it over, and it just fills those in. Okay, this is nice. It just makes things a little more efficiently if we want to go through and then say I wanted that value to be the same, right? Can go through and set that up, which ends up being nice. Okay. Another thing that can be helpful, and I like this for going through and numbering things, 2, 3, 4, 5, start setting up a set so that we tell Excel kind of what's going on. If we go down through and take the same set of boxes, set of cells, and drag them down, okay, it sees that as counting numerical numbers. This is helping so I don't have to enter 1, 2, 3, 4 down with a set of things, right? Or I can do 2, 4, 6, 8, something like that. Excel is going to read this as even numbers, right? And it's just going to copy those up. Okay, so again, something that can be helpful so that you don't have to manually punch in a bunch of items. Okay, coming through sorting. Okay, sorting is going to be tricky, but you always want to be careful in Excel. Excel is a great tool for screwing up and randomizing all your data. So anytime you're working from an Excel file, always want to make sure that you copy some sort of scrap copy or working file. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to call this Excel working file, because if I screw this file up, I want to be able to go through and still have a copy of the original. Okay, so let's say that I want to sort everything in column B in ascending order. Now what I'm going to do, just as a safeguard, is I'm going to copy my participant numbers here. I'm going to put them on the other side just to make sure I have a copy of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight B, which is the copy, is the variable that I want to sort. Okay, I'm going to go up under the home ribbon. I'm going to hit sort filter. I'm going to sort this from smallest to largest. And I'm going to click on that. Now, Excel is always going to say sort warning. We found data next to the one in your selection. It will not be sorted. What do you want to do? Always want to expand the selection. Okay. If you hit continue with the current selection, what it's going to do is it's going to sort this column and nothing else. And if you have this is your data set, it's going to completely scramble all your data up. So you always want to make sure that you're expanding the selection. But this, for me, this is why I always want to have these two variables in there. So when I hit sort, okay, it's going to start from my lowest variable to my highest value. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say equals that minus that, and if nothing got screwed around, that should be 0. My values should be the same from my original subject number or participant number in my check, and then I can take this and drag this down, and it's all going to be 0. Okay, so you see that basically what Excel did is it took this cell minus this cell and then did the same thing for all of them, so I can go down through and double check, make sure everything's good. Okay, and let's say that I now want to sort this largest to smallest. I can hit that, yes, making sure it's going to sort everything, and then hit sort. Values, cases with missing values on top. Here's biggest value, smallest value, and again, if I go through and double check to make sure I haven't screwed anything up in my sort, everything's looking good. Okay, what can happen is if you have a space, if you've got a column here, right, where there's absolutely no values at all, and I were to go through and I would have hit sort, and here I'm going to do this just to make sure that we're on the up and up with our sort. Okay, so here's all my values, but then I've got a space here, column with no values in it. Okay, and so I've got a gap in my data set, and then I've got another group of scores here. If I go through and I say I want to sort column C, smallest to largest, it's going to say, do you want me to expand the selection? And I say, sure. Okay. What it did is it sorted everything that had something, a value, a column that had at least some data in it. But what it didn't do is it didn't sort this. And so if this was a variable that we had a gap in, now all of this is scrambled up. There's no way to catch this back unless you go through and find each individual one, right? So here, for the data that was all side by side, that's all still good. Okay, but this value, this variable here that was outside that wasn't touching anything, that's now all scrambled and not connected with any of the other scores in the case. And so always be very, very, very careful when you're sorting data in Excel. Okay. So some basic sort functions. Another thing we can do is go through and freeze cases. So let's say that I want to add some variable names in the top. So I want to insert a variable, and this is going to be subject, this is going to be X, that's going to be Y, and this is just the variable that I've checked in here. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to bold those and sort of space these out a little bit. But then also what I'm going to do, because I'm fancy, I want to put a border down here on the bottom. Okay, there we go. That's looking nice. All right. But what I want to do now is I want to be able to go down through and scroll this, but I want to still see my subject heading on the top here. So what I can do is I can go through, highlight this row, and then go to View, Freeze Panes, Freeze Top Row. And what we got there is now I can go down through and scroll this, and everything's looking good. I can also do the same thing if I wanted to go through and freeze the first column. If I had lots and lots of variables here that went out forever and ever, I can freeze that first pane here so that my participant number is going to be the same across. And then also, I guess I didn't go through unfreeze panes, right? So, and let's say that I just want that frozen so I can see that. Okay, so some different things you can play around with in terms of setting up these sheets to make things easier on you. Okay, so we got that columns to rows, rows to columns. This is also super nice. Let's say that I had variables 1, 2. Let's do this. So I've got variables in my Excel sheet. SD4 F E R Z, something like that. Okay, and these are all my variable names, right? And what I want to do is I want to enter these into an SPSS sheet, but I don't want to have to retype everything up, right? And so what I can do in Excel, so I've got these variables, right? So these are my variable names, but what I need to have them do, I need to have them in vertical format so I can enter them into my SPSS sheet. What I can do is I can highlight these, copy, and if I go and hit this and then right click, you'll see this transpose here. Boom. Okay, and now what I've got is that a set of values or names or scores or whatever I need that I can go through and enter here in SPSS. Same thing if I were to have a bunch of values here that I needed to have in column form, hit the same thing, and it's got them transferred across. This can be a very, very helpful tool, help save you a lot of time and having to hand enter a bunch of junk. So delete those. Okay. So we can go through, paste that stuff there. So these are just some examples of some basic functions we can use in Excel. Things that I primarily use Excel for: calculating summary scores not entered into SPSS. Again, if I'm trying to look at, delete this. I want to know from these scores that I've entered, and I just want to know equals average of, say, grades in my grade book. I can go through and it'll give me, let's see, this is format. There we go. All right. So average here is at 67. Drag that over. Average here is 60, right? And we can see that this is what we've got going on up there, right? So calculating summary scores is very nice. We're going to do a lot of work calculating statistics that aren't available in SPSS, just setting up basic calculators, basic spreadsheets that'll calculate effect sizes, confidence intervals, post hoc tests, things along those lines. Graphs. You'll have better graphing software out there, but if I want to say X1, let's say X1 x2, y1, and y2, and I say its mean is 56, 65, 34, and 28. Okay. SPSS is pretty crappy in terms of graphing data. Excel is a nice way to go through and start to set up different graphs. Go through column. Oh, no, we don't want that. Insert. Or here, how about this? We'll go X, Y, oops, X and Y, and we'll go, this will be 1 and 2, okay, 56, 57, 76, there. That ought to work out better. Okay, so what we can do is then we've got we can go through and start plotting out graphs and things like that. Different options you can play around with changing things up. So this ends up being a nice format to do some simple graphs. So playing around with that, and then also setting up tables. This can be nice if I've got a demographics table where I have, let's say, sex, age, gender, score, whoops, education, so on and so forth, right? And then want to go through and say this is 56% female, age is say 18.7. Oh, once I got gender in there twice. Education average is 12.5, so we got, say, freshmen halfway through their year, right? Can then go through, take that into a Word document, table 1, right? And then can start going through and setting up basic tables, right? For assignments, publications, and things along those lines. And so some nice things there. So this is just some basic stuff that you can do in Excel. There's obviously a lot more that you can do with this program. If you're comfortable with Excel, awesome. This is probably all review that you didn't need to watch. But if you've never played around with this a lot, particularly in terms of working with summary equations and things, again, let's say this is exam 1 and this was exam 2, which I actually think these data are from like an intro class, and I want to know average score across the two, right? That gives me an average across the two exam scores. Then I can drag this down, right? Average, go through and say I want that to be over there, right? So a lot of different things you can do with the program. Again, most people generally have a reasonable handle on Excel. Some people might not, but just wanted to provide this to you all as just a basic demo. Okay, all right, thanks a lot, and we'll catch you guys in a couple days. Bye.